Alrighty, welcome back to Millennial Third Mom YouTube page and online community. Today I'm really excited to speak with Jen Varela, a certified gentle sleep coach here in San Diego, and just have her share a little bit of wisdom for all the new parents out there. So Jen, thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I live here in San Diego, and I'm a gentle certified sleep coach. I have been married for 25 years to my Ray Ray. I'm a mom of two kids, Zeb and Molly, who are sophomore and junior in college. And I've been a sleep coach for 14 years. And I love what I do because I get to work with families in a really special time in their lives.
Awesome. Yeah, I love to hear like backstories. And so I'm curious, how did you get to the place where this is what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah, right. There's always a backstory.
Mhm.
Um, so when I had my son Zeb, I need a lot of sleep, and he's one of those FOMO on alert babies. And I was in a community where pretty much everyone was just doing cried out, and I just couldn't do it. It was just like tears make my ears ring. I get lightheaded and feel physical pain. So call me highly empathetic or wimpy, whichever. And I also was dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety. And so it just wasn't an option for me to do the cried out. But at the same time, I had found that if I got a stretch of sleep, I was coping so much better. And back then, he's now 21. So
Mhm.
um, this was not talked about. Nobody really talked about PMADs or perinatal mood anxiety disorders. And so I remember going to my OBGYN and her just saying, you know what, it'll pass. This is kind of what happens. And I gutted through. But I really realized like sleep was the key for me. And so then I had other friends who were like, well, how did you do that then without the crying and all that? So then I started helping them, and then they're like, you should do this. I'm like, is this a this? Does this exist?
Mhm.
And so my background was human services counseling, my undergraduate degree. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this with only, families that are, babies over 6 months, no health issues or whatever. So when I launched, the sleep coaches didn't even exist. There wasn't such a field. There wasn't any training for it. And then in 2012, Kim West had launched a training program, and her philosophy, she's a licensed therapist. Her philosophy was as close to mine as was out there. And so I've been really glad to be a part of the community and not just a sole, coach out there. But it's been a really neat experience to be able to take what my personal journey was and know the difference that it's making, because I know what that journey was for me was really hard. So
Yeah, that sleep piece, I think because every baby is so different, it's hard to know like what should I expect and what should I do and when do I do what. So just knowing that there's people out there who like do this for a living and out of like just their passion, it's really cool to hear.
yeah.
Awesome. What would you say you love most about what you do?
So what I love most is that I get to teach and share with parents that you don't have to choose between getting the sleep you need and taking care of yourself and loving on your baby. So there's so many like camps, like you have to do it this way, in 12 weeks you can start working on this,
Mhm.
over 12 hours, like and then there's the other side, like, oh, if you don't co-sleep with your baby, then you're gonna, fracture attachment. And I think that you don't have to pick sides or come into a camp. I really believe that you can take a look at what is your parenting approach, who's the temperament of your child, and in a very gentle way get your family to a place where everyone's thriving with sleep. So I work with families that room share, bed share, separate room, separate sleep space. Like, I don't do a one size fits all. I'm more focused on what's happening in your family. How can we get you to where you want to be in a safe way? And so it's really super fun to empower families that they don't have to do something that's outside of their comfort zone or what they have a piece about in order to get the sleep they need. So I really like that. Just brings me so much joy that I can walk that journey with them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's a non-shame, non-judgment approach to just getting your physical needs met and
Because it's a
supporting.
need. It's not just a want. It's a need, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So speaking of this need of postpartum sleep and pregnancy sleep, but we're focusing more on postpartum sleep. What do
Mhm.
you wish every parent knew, like when it comes to the expectations and realities and support available in the season?
Yeah. So first, I just want to say in the first 6 months of your baby's life, not normal is normal. So, it's kind of like that Groundhog Day. Like, did I wear a t-shirt yesterday and shower, or was that 2 days ago?
Mhm.
And so sleep is going to greatly fluctuate, especially in the first 6 months of life. And a huge part of that has to do with temperament. So, like I mentioned, my little boy, now man, it
Mhm.
was a on FOMO baby. Well, he's still that way. So they are born with temperament, and
Mhm.
personality is temperament mixed with life experience and parenting. And
Mhm.
so some of these little ones that come into the world, they are tricky sleepers. And it may have nothing to do with what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong. It may have to do with just how they need to have the help and to help be regulated to fall asleep. So, so when you're kind of looking at, well, what should I be on this schedule? Like I'm supposed to be on this 3 nap schedule, and it's supposed to be at 9 and at 1 and at 4, and I'm gonna be well. Yeah, if your baby falls under what's considered the typical schedule, but if you have like a little one who's not a great napper and they're taking a lot of short naps, you may not be hitting that 12-hour clock, right? So I think I just want to put that as normal from a sleep science standpoint. What's happening is during REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, little ones are taking the information from the day and they're putting it into long-term memory. So when you see their little eyes go back and forth under their
Mhm.
eyelids.
Mhm.
And that is the shorter cycle of sleep. So we do REM sleep 30 as adults, 30 minutes, non-REM 60 minutes. And there was a study done to prove that babies didn't dream. And what they ended up being able to prove is that 9-month-olds dream more than college age students, and infants dream more than 9-month-olds. So fascinating. But when you think about all the information that's coming to them once they come out of the womb, that they're learning by their senses, smell, taste, touch, sight, and hearing in that first 8 months of life, there's a lot of information to take and then put into long-term memory. So these short naps that people call crap naps, I'm going to say they're very important, and it's great. And so, but that may mean that you have a little one that's kind of unpredictable about where those naps are falling. And so, yes, if you can hit a rhythm of watching that 90-minute wake window, um, especially in like the first 4.5 months of life. So they wake up at 7 a.m., 90 minutes later, you want to have them back to sleep. Which would be like 8:30. So that science comes from Dr. Polly Moore. She's a neuroscientist actually here in San Diego, and she calls it the NAPS system, NAPS. So you note the time the baby wakes up, you add 90 minutes, you play with them, and then you soothe them back to sleep. So if I was to give one main tip, it would be don't look at the 12-hour clock. Just watch the wake window and get them that opportunity to go to sleep. And just know that all sleep is purposeful, and it's not always in your control depending on you know, the way your little one is made and how they take in information, and, you know, they enjoy being with you. And sometimes these little ones will push through their sleep and feeding needs. So they don't always give all those sleepy signals, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I do think that it's a science, like you said, like the science of sleep and the wake windows. I feel like sometimes like I'm a rocket science engineer just trying to figure out like when is the next time that she's gonna fall asleep
Yeah.
and how long has she been
Yeah.
awake. And gratefully there are apps, like I use an
Yeah.
app that helps
Which can
me.
help. help, but they can also do the opposite. They can also
Mm,
make you feel like you're messing up, right?
that's
And I'm just
true.
gonna say, not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. I guess like let's say so I didn't think about that point, so just kind of like a tangent. But what would you say to maybe somebody like me who is pretty relying on these apps? What kind of words of wisdom
yeah.
or just advice would you share?
So you know your baby best. That's what I say, right? So if your intuition, your little spidey sense says, no, I don't think this is a fit, or I think something's up. I'm going to say, listen to that, because I have yet to really have any situation I could think of that in the end it didn't match what was going on developmentally or what was going on physically for the little one. So I say, you know, pay attention to what you have a piece about, because that doesn't mean that there can't be some, because I had anxiety too when my with both my pregnancies and miscarriages. And so I'm not saying that anxiety should rule you. There's a distinction between anxiety and nope, mama bear just showed up, then not a fit, right?
Mhm.
And so I think don't give away your authority. You
Yeah.
know that you know this child best, and you were given this child because you're the right one for this child.
Yeah,
Uh, so
I think a lot of us need to hear that. I appreciate that because I do think that there are certain times when I'll be really, really strict on the wake window and like she hasn't been awake for this long, but I know it in my heart she's sleepy. Like, or she's right now she's teething, for example. So she's a little
my
grumpier.
nemesis, man, the teething. Like I even work with dentists, and they don't even know exactly to say what's happening with the teeth and what's going
Yeah,
on, right? So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's
So
some kids that teeth really easy, and some it's a real struggle, right? So,
yeah. So
I think it's really important to know that like your voice for your child trumps any expert, me included. My book included as a sleep expert. You know best what your little one needs, and we co-regulate them, right, when they first come into the world. So we do all the things that the womb does, right? So we bounce them, shush them, and all that stuff. And then they learn what it feels like to be co-regulated. So then a little farther down along the line, as we get closer to 6 months of age, where it's more appropriate for some of these things to be something they start to do for themselves, they know what that feels like
Mhm.
because they've been co-regulated for 6 months. So all these ideas of like you shouldn't nurse your baby to sleep, I'm going to say, well, good luck with that, especially if you're breastfeeding, because
Mhm.
all those lovely hormones in there are supposed to make everyone relaxed, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And you may have a little one like my son who was very sensory seeking, and so thank God I could nurse him to sleep in the early months, because otherwise I think we might not have gotten enough sleep. And
Yeah.
so, something like the sleep suck association, there's a lot of emphasis, you know, what is it, eat, play, sleep, and whatever. Then they changed the vernacular to something else. And so
Mhm.
the point I'm making is that in 3 days at 6 months, we can get rid of the sleep suck association. So it's not worth 6 months of feeling guilty that you're doing something wrong. If that works to get your baby to sleep, then do it. If you feel like, okay, I think he's ready or she's ready to not have quite as much me doing everything, well, then at bedtime's a great place. See if you can substitute movement instead of sucking, right? But maybe
Mhm.
only at bedtime when they have that good sleep pressure, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think as a new parent, sometimes you can't help but to jump 20 years forward, right? It's like, oh no.
this is never
Like,
going to change, right?
yeah,
And
or
and also we just want to do the right thing too, right? Just tell me what the right thing to do is, and I'm happy to do that. And but sometimes then we give away our authority too quick.
yeah, I like that. I think grounding in like our authority, knowing that, like you said, we were given this gift and we're the best parents for them and learning how to trust our intuition and yeah, our, yeah, I love that. Cool. So I guess I'm curious for the people who are like, oh, okay, I'm having some difficulties with sleep or just uneasiness of what to do. How do you recommend that they be in contact with you or somebody like you?
So somebody like me, I'm going to say, is going to fall under a gentle sleep coach category. And there's a lot of people out there who say they're gentle because that's
Mm,
the new buzzword,
mm,
but that isn't necessarily accurate. So when you're looking at getting support from a sleep coach, just know that not all philosophies are the same.
mm,
So you really want to make sure you find somebody that aligns with your parental approach, right? And if you are one who's interested in going more in the gentle direction, I'm going to tell you with a gentle sleep coach, you're never going to hear that you can sleep train a baby like solid before 6 months. Maybe 4.5 months, depending on the temperament of the child, you might be able to start working on some sleep coaching or sleep training. But prior to 6 months, there isn't any science, any evidence to show that if you sleep train a baby before 6 months of age, that it will have a long-term benefit.
mm.
And in fact, in some of the most well-done studies, they show that they only, with a lot of crying, they can only increase the overall sleep by about 30 minutes a day.
Mm,
And I think that's kind of crazy.
mhm,
So it's really, again, back to temperament. So I'm just going to say, if you're looking for something that's truly on the gentle side, then keep in mind that it won't be sleep training before 6 months. And so a certified gentle sleep coach comes from Kim West training, which I think is terrific. There's also several other, there's some great ones now in Europe that are gentle training that I really can stand behind. But just know that prior to 6 months, not so much. So
mm,
that would be my like gift of like, know that not all sleep coaches are equal.
mhm,
Um, and then next, I would say, as far as like, how would you use my services or find me? So I named my company Sugar Night Night because that's what I said to my kids when they were little, Sugar Night Night.
mhm.
Had I known about SEOing back 14 years ago, I might have said baby sleeps tonight. I don't know.
Oh.
Uh, but you can find all my stuff there. And I offer a variety of different ways in which you can jump in and get support. One is, about once a month, I'll do a Zoom that's a free Q&A, and I'll answer as many questions as I can in an hour. Um, I have a book that's like $10 on Amazon as an e-reader, and that is full of how do you make these gentle shifts down on their dependency on you. And then you could always do a 30-minute call with me where I have you fill out a questionnaire. We really talk about, um, what's going on. I find most people don't need one-on-one coaching. They just need to know, what do I need to tweak and what's my next steps? And so I find that is a really beneficial place to put your money. Anybody who does that call gets 2 weeks free of Gen on Demand, which is kind of like an app where I have videos and handouts. You can leave a question as a video on Tuesday. I answer everyone's question as a video. So that call actually gives you some ongoing support too, as well as my books inside of there. And then, of course, there is one-on-one coaching. Um, and I'm happy to do that. And I really enjoy the coaching. But I just also think not everybody really needs that level of support, and it can get really expensive. So
Mm,
there's other ways to get what you need without having to,
yeah,
break the
yeah.
bank.
Yeah, I appreciate that like tiered approach. Like, hey, how about we try this first and that? So is the coaching support that you do a virtual, in person?
That's
What
a
does it look
great
like?
question. So when I first started my practice, I thought it was going to be all like in person. And what I find is that these shifts that are going to have long-term benefits, it's not all going to happen in one night. So also with my being tear adverse, I guess
Mhm.
I've kind of owned my craft so that I haven't even needed to be in a home in the last like 7 years. So I actually have clients all over the country and in other
Mm,
countries because I'm teaching you so that you do the interacting with your child. Because really the reality is you're gonna have regressions due to sickness or travel or teething,
mm,
and you're gonna need to be the one to know how to get back on track. So I don't want to be the one that got you settled at 6 months and then at 8 months you hit a regression and you don't know what to do. So I always
mhm,
say, I want to teach you to fish, not give you a fish.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's
I mean,
cool.
if you're in San Diego, I love meeting in person. I think it's awesome, but I don't feel like it changes the quality or my ability to help you, whether it's in person or on Zoom.
Awesome. And then I know on Instagram it's Sugar Night Night,
Oh yes,
right?
yes, Sugar Nut. Yep. So I'm Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Um,
And then your website, is it, can you just
Sugar
share
Night
it
Night.
again? Sugar
Yeah,
Night
yeah.
Night. Okay.
And
I
it's
love
NIGHT. So
it.
sugarnightnight.com. Mhm.
Yeah, I forget how tricky that word night is.
I know, right? It can be different
Sugar
ways.
Night
I mean,
Night. Yeah.
NIGE. It's not
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
IGH.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to like put the links
Yeah.
in the description and all that. Awesome. So any last words of encouragement or wisdom you like to share?
Well, I was going to say about the intuition, but it fits so well in the other part of our conversation. So maybe I'll end with this, which is um, being a sleep coach. Sleep changes things, right? And it is a mood regulator, and
Mhm.
it can make a huge difference. So if you are dealing with something like, perinatal mood anxiety disorder, whether that's you find yourself getting really angry all the time, or, you're really overwhelmed, or anxiety, or feeling a little sad all the time, or crying a lot. Just getting a 4.5 to 5 hour stretch of sleep will change things. And that is a crazy thing to say to somebody who has a
Yeah.
baby who needs to feed every 3 hours, right?
Mhm.
So, what I'm going to encourage you to do is rally the troops, ask for help. So as one last little tip, you could, with your partner, take shifts. So if you're the gestational parent and you gave birth to this little one, the best shift for you to take is from bedtime until like 1 or 2 a.m.
Mhm.
And that comes from the work of Dr. Barbara Perry on like where is the best benefit for that chunk of sleep. And even if you still need to be feeding on those hours and the baby needs to be brought to you, just mentally getting that break that you're off the clock can really help with you getting that rest and restoration that you need. Because I know in the very beginning it's very difficult. And,
Mhm.
sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
Mhm.
So I would say if you can do, shifts with your partner or spouse, if you can have a family member, maybe who could even come once a week and take that first shift would make a huge difference. And if you can afford the help in the beginning, I'm going to say, don't spend the money on me, the sleep coach, spend the money on the doula or the night nurse who can come and give you some relief.
Mhm.
So it's okay to ask for help. None of us do this alone. And so it's a need. It's not a want or a luxury to get
Mhm.
rest.
Yeah, yeah. I literally heard something earlier today that we don't need to earn rest. Like rest is, you just need rest.
A human right.
It's a human right, yeah. And we live in a high pace, high productivity, so sometimes it feels like it, but at the that it's like that's so true. That's so true. I do
It will
have
change.
it will. One follow-up to that. So let's say for the parent that is breastfeeding, would you suggest the partner like bring the baby over to the boob? How does that look? Or like does it look like
Yep. On a
pumping?
practical level, what does that look like? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I say the person is on, it means they're not waiting for that nudge.
Mm,
Hey, get the baby. You know what
mhm,
I'm saying?
mhm,
And so if that means you actually have, for maybe that segment, that parent or partner chooses to actually stay awake, right? And have that baby even in another room so that when that little one starts to stir, they bring the baby in to be fed. The breastfeeding mom or parent or chest feeding parent can lay there and just know that they're doing what needs to be done. And when that's done, then they know that little one's going to be taken and brought back in. So um, we want to make sure we do that safely. So keep in mind that if a parent or caretaker is asleep and the baby is asleep, and you're doing that together, that is co-sleeping. The
mhm,
two most unsafe place to co-sleep is in like a recliner on the couch. So when I
mhm,
say the other person is taking that shift, that doesn't mean that they're going into the other room and holding that baby on the couch and falling asleep.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
That
Safety
baby needs to
first.
be in a safe space. That that other caretaker needs to be mentally aware enough, even if they're sleeping on the floor next to the little one on an appropriate surface next to them on the floor or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So
That makes
I
sense.
think that's an important distinction. But it's the one who's first on call, and they are taking that initiative so that the other parent can rest, and then swap it, right? So then now when the
Mm.
gestational parent or chest feeding parent is now on, now the other parent gets from that time until morning, and maybe they even sleep in another room
Mhm.
in order to get that sleep.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
won't be like that for forever. It feels like forever, and sometimes I do find partners can get a little feeling like it's going to be for forever. So I think it's an important conversation to have. Well, what are your needs and what are my needs? And is this okay for us to do this still for the next 3 weeks? And can we reevaluate in 3 weeks from now?
Mm.
Things change a lot in 3 week increments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I appreciate you sharing that. I agree. I think that sometimes if you are the breastfeeding parent, you think that it's my responsibility, all the wake ups, all the diapers, because I'm already awake, and that is just road to burnout and sleep deprivation. So I like
So
that.
my joke on that, just because I like to put in little jokes or whatever. So I do I over the years have done most of the cooking. And my husband is awesome because he would help do the dishes, which was just great. However, where all those spoons and spatulas and things get put is a mystery to me. And so then I would go to like go ready to cook, and I'm like frustrated because I can't find the spatula, I can't find the right. And so I had a choice. Either I could do it all and not have any help, right? And maybe get a little resentful of that. Or I could go, you know what? It just means that my kitchen is not going to be organized the way exactly I would do it. But if I will pull out all the things I need before I start cooking, so I know where they are, so that I'm not getting frustrated in the middle of my cooking, how great is that? Then I get to have some help. So sometimes we do have to figure out a way to let go of some of our expectations of how things should look in order to
Mhm.
have the help. But it is an amazing thing because your partner, spouse, will develop their own unique relationship with that baby, and that baby needs that too. And
Mhm.
so sometimes it's hard to let go of some of those things, but then you get a real partner.
Yeah,
So I think it's worth it to have a disorganized kitchen.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It is my metaphor, right?
Yeah.
In order to have a true partner in the process.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for the reminder. I think there are definitely certain things that it feels easier to take control of, but in the long run, like you said, it builds resentment and anxiety and burnout. And in the long run, it's just not the best. We need support. We need a village.
We do. We do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for your wisdom, your tips, your practical help. I hope that it helps somebody out there. And
Hope so.
y'all make sure to reach out to her at sugarnightnight.com or on Instagram. But yeah, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor. I appreciate
Of
it.
course. Thank you. Bye-bye.